What's up, MSM? What's up, HSM? I'm so glad you made it to our YouTube channel. Do all the things like, subscribe, swipe up, so you keep coming back. We are so glad that you're here because this is our third week of our discipleship series where we have gotten to talk about what is discipleship and why is it important. This week, Jeff is, you guys, he is about to speak such truth into your lives. Jeff's words are always so powerful. He brings such a love for the Lord every time he speaks. But what he has to say today, and he talks about this, it is the key to a relationship with Jesus. And he's going to talk about that experience that we have at camp every year, that experience at Hume when we think, why is my faith always different at Hume? But it's not Hume. And Jeff is about to talk about this key of how can I have this intimate, amazing relationship with Jesus? And it is so simple, but it will change your life. So keep watching, and we hope you enjoy.
Well, chances are, if you're on this video right now, you've already seen the title down below, which means you already know what we're going to be talking about today. This idea of spiritual discipline. Now, discipline's not a really fun word. It's not something that we hear and it makes us feel good. It's not something that we usually seek out on our own. So if you're a student and you clicked on this video willingly and you're still here watching, congratulations. You actually have more discipline than even most of our staff do. Truth be told, I'm probably the least qualified person to talk on the topic of discipline. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I have an alarm set for 7 o'clock in the morning, every morning. I have for a number of years now. Reality is, I don't usually get out of bed until well after noon. And the reason I don't is because I lack discipline. You see, when the alarm goes off at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll think, man, good for me, I'm up, the day is young, but I just need 5 more minutes. That's it, 5 minutes, and I promise I'll get up, it'll be great. And so I go back down, and 5 minutes later, the alarm goes off again, and I wake up, and I think, wow, 5 minutes is not a lot of time. It's not enough to get anything substantial. I feel just the same as I did at 7. Maybe just need a couple more minutes. I'll go back down. At 7:08, I'll wake up. It'll be good. And so I go back down, and I sleep for a couple more minutes, and then 7:08 rolls around, and the alarm clock goes off again, and I wake up, and I think, gosh, why did I pick 8? 8 is such a weird number, 8 minutes. It's not a whole lot at all. It's not really in between anything. You know what? Just to be safe, 15. 7:15, I promise, I'll be up. It'll be good. So I go back down, and I get a couple more minutes of sleep, and then the alarm goes off at 7:15, and I think, gosh, 15 is so close to 20. And so I'll go back down, and then 7:20 will roll around, and I'll wake up, and I think, man, nothing really happens except on the half-an-hour increment system anyways, so 7:30, and I promise that's going to be the last one. And I'll go back down, and then I'll wake up at 7:30. I think, you know what, I have nowhere to be until 9 o'clock. I can just go to, it's whatever. And so I'll go back down, and 9 o'clock will roll around. I think 9 is so close to 10 o'clock, and if I'm at 10 o'clock, I might as well sleep in until around 11:57, and then I can be up, and I can be ready, and I can be wherever. And this goes on and on and on every day because I lack discipline. I'll just tell you one more quick story about myself. I started an eating plan at the beginning of this month. Yeah, I know. But at August 3rd, it was a Monday, I started this eating plan, and I started it because I had seen one of my buddies do it. And I had seen the results, and I'm like, I want that. You're telling me I can do that? I want that. And so I started studying everything that I needed to know for this eating plan, what I could eat, what I couldn't eat, when I could eat, when I couldn't eat, all the exercises I had to do. And I convinced myself I had the resolve, I could do it, and I had decided that 2020 was going to be the year that Jeff finally gets his six-pack. And so if you're looking at me up here this morning and you're thinking, man, Jeff, I thought something looked different. You look slim. Thanks, Mom. But for everyone else who's watching, the reason you don't see a difference is because I lack discipline. What I didn't know on August 3rd when I started this eating plan was that on August 4th, when I went to go visit a friend of mine, and I was feeling good after a full day of being on this plan, and I was bragging about some of the recipes I had come up with. Yeah, mixing kale with egg whites and chicken broth, and it tastes good. That he would respond by sharing with me one of his recipes that he'd been working on for a while and that he had just recently perfected. Except his was a recipe for the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. And I remember hearing these words, I'm thinking, whoa, no sir, no, no, no. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a changed man now. I've been enlightened. Grilled cheese sandwich? No, thank you. I'll go for the kale wrap instead. But why don't you make one just so I can see what you mean? And so he makes his sandwich, and I don't know what made it so great. Maybe it was the 3 cheeses, or maybe it was the way he buttered up a panini press with cooked bacon grease beforehand to lock in all the flavor. But he's making it, and it comes out, and I'm like, all right, it looks like a fine sandwich. All right, you know what, give me a bite. I'll just not, it's not a cheat meal. It's not a cheat meal. It's a bite. It doesn't count. And so I took a bite, and I'm chewing. And I'm like, you know what? The first bite of the sandwich is always just crust. You can't really taste anything substantial from the first bite. You have to take a second bite. And so I take a second bite. And there wasn't a whole lot of cheese in that bite, so I had to take a third bite just to get to the center where the cheese and the bacon and all that stuff is. And then it just kept going and going and going. And then I was putting down the panini press again and doing another sandwich, this time with pepperoni inside, just to spice things up, just to see if maybe it was the perfect sandwich, something missing. We each ended up having about 5 or 6 sandwiches that night. I had studied everything I needed to know about my eating plan. I knew everything I needed to know. I had the vision, I had the means. The only thing I didn't have was discipline. And so as we talk about discipline this morning, specifically spiritual discipline, I think it's important for us to understand what this word means. And so if you've watched the videos the past 2 weeks, you know that we're talking on this theme of discipleship. 2 weeks ago, Miranda kicked us off with this idea of what is discipleship, and she painted this picture of a beautiful web of personal and intimate relationships, people who may not really have anything in common except for one thing, and that is a love for Jesus Christ. Last week, Connor talked to us about worship, this beautiful opportunity where we get to be discipled by God by listening to music, by singing out words and truths that reorient our focus onto how holy and perfect He is. This week, what I want to do is give us something tangible, something we can hold on to, something that we can do that really helps us to be discipled well and to make disciples well. And so some of you may have already noticed that discipleship and discipline, they actually sound pretty similar. They come from a similar root, meaning to learn or to follow. When you are a disciple of somebody, you're a follower of them. You're learning from them. And to be disciplined is to follow a set of practices. And so to be a disciple is to be disciplined. And to be disciplined is to be a good disciple. And so if we are going to be disciples of Jesus, that means we can say all the things we want about how much we love God and how much we love Jesus and how great He is. And we can repeat all the things we hear Him say that we're supposed to do. But unless we actually do them, unless we follow the teachings of Jesus, and unless we actually do what He tells us to do, it's the same as me learning about this eating plan and studying the things that I wanted to eat and what I couldn't eat and what I wanted to have and what I couldn't have. But if we're not actually following the plan, if we're not actually doing those things, it's possible that we can study about Jesus without actually getting to know Him. That we can know Christianity very well without actually knowing our Christ. And so for us, if we're going to read things in the Bible where Jesus says, hey, this is something that's good for you, this is something that you need to do if you want to have a closer relationship with me, and we don't do them, we can't expect to have any of the results. And so Jesus, he tells us so in his word. When he talks in Matthew 7, he tells us this parable of somebody who builds their house on sand versus building their house on rock. And Jesus says that if whoever hears these words of mine is like a foolish man, Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. And what Jesus is saying here is that if we're looking for this deeper relationship with him, but we refuse to put in the work, if we don't base it on anything, if we just hear his words that he tells us to do and don't do anything with it, we're setting ourselves up for failure. Let me be real honest with you guys. Here's an out. If you are completely satisfied with your relationship with Jesus, if you don't want to go any deeper, if you're thinking, you know what, me and JC, we're like this, it's fine, it's good, then you can click away from this video. But if you want a deeper and more intimate relationship with Jesus, if you want to know your Savior more, if you want to have that feeling of closeness and of fellowship with God, maybe you felt it at some point in the past and you're longing for it again, or maybe you're looking for it for the first time. If you want that, I'm about to give you the key to success. If you don't want that, this video is not for you. But right now, I'm going to make it really easy. Usually what we like to do at church is we like to say a lot of stuff and you have to pick out the gems and, put it in your Instagram bio. None of that. I'm going to just direct. I'm going to give you what you need, all right? I'm going to give you a step-by-step plan, and I promise, if you follow this plan, your life with Jesus will change forever, all right? Grab a pencil, grab some paper, whatever you need, just take notes, all right? Step number 1, pray more. Step number 2, watch what happens. That's it. That's it. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, Jeff, pray more. It's church, whatever. I mean it. I really mean it. Because I don't know why, for some reason, we as Christians, myself included, we have this beautiful tool, this golden thing that puts us into the presence of God, that allows us to have direct, personal, one-on-one conversations with him. Yet for some reason, we put it at the bottom of our checklist like it's some sort of chore. Did the dishes? Check. Took out the trash? Check. Did my laundry? Check. Prayed? Check. Guys, what would happen if we just took the time to discipline ourselves and prayed more? Not just the dear God, thank you for this day, thank you for my dog kind of prayers. There's nothing wrong with those. They're great. They're nice. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Lord, thank you for the fact that I even draw breath today kind of prayers. God, thank you that the sun shines on me today. Or when we're scared, when we're worried, the God, where are you kind of prayers that we read about so often in the Psalms. The real, honest, and dirty God, I know your promises are true. I know that you have said that you are with me, but right now I cannot see you and I am scared kind of prayers. Guys, I think it's because we lack discipline. It's not always fun to sit down and drop what we're doing to pray. It's not fun to take time out of our day and say, I'm going to go do something for 15, 20 minutes, whatever, and not have our electronics around us. But if you want an example of what it looks like to live a godly life, let's look at Jesus. Right? We often ask, what would Jesus do? Don't ever ask that question. Ask, what did Jesus do? You've got a book full of what Jesus did. He's the perfect example for our spiritual lives. And what happens when we look all throughout Scripture is we see Jesus taking the time to set aside himself and pray. Luke in the 7th chapter says Jesus often withdrew by himself to pray. After John the Baptist, Jesus' close friend, his co-worker, and his cousin is beheaded, Jesus is mourning, and so what does he do? He goes to pray. Some people show up and he has to casually feed the 5,000 real quick, but as soon as he's done with that, what does he do? He sends them away. He sends the apostles away, and he withdraws to a mountainside by himself to pray. You want to talk about a deep relationship with God? Jesus, fully God, fully man, always in divine harmony with the Father, he had it. And even he realized that we need to take the time to pray. And so when he's going through the Garden of Gethsemane, he's about to willingly walk to the cross. Not only is he about to be beaten and tortured, but he's about to take on the full wrath of God for our sake. And what does he do? He gets on his knees and he takes a nap to recharge his batteries. No, he prays. He says, Father, I know that this is good and that this is your will, but right now I am scared. I am walking into something that I know is going to hurt. It is going to be painful. I need your strength right now. Jesus prayed. And if our reaction to that is anything less than if Jesus needed to pray, how much more so do I need to pray? Then we're missing it. I fear that so often we look at this story and we see Jesus pray and we go, man, that's crazy. I wish I could be like that. Maybe you guys have had these experiences where maybe you've been to Hume Lake, for example, and you've had these wonderful encounters with God and you felt so close to him where you were at camp. Let me tell you guys, it had nothing to do with where you were, but it had everything to do with what you are doing. I mean, let's think for a second. How often do you pray when you're at Hume Lake? You wake up, you go to breakfast, you pray at breakfast. Then you go to morning worship. You pray at morning worship. Then you hear the message in the morning. Then you pray after the message in the morning. Then you go and get ready for rec. You pray before rec chapel. You pray after rec chapel. Then you go eat lunch. You pray at lunch. You do your free time stuff. Then you get together for chapel again. You pray at chapel. You worship for a little bit. You pray after chapel. You go into your community groups. You pray when you're doing your devos. And then you're about to go to bed. And what do before you turn off the lights? You pray. And for some reason, we're like, man, why am I so close to God when I'm at Hume? We're confused. And then we're going back down the hill and we're thinking, man, I just want to feel like this all the time. And I can't help but feel like God is sitting there singing, okay, bet. You've got all the tools you need. You know what you have to do. You know what I've said to do to be close to me. So do it. But the reason we don't, the reason that we lack this intimate connection with God sometimes is because we lack discipline. And so if you want to see your life transform forever, if you want to see what it could really be like to be personally with Jesus, can I just encourage you to set some time to pray? Discipline yourself. If you even took 10 minutes a day, and if you take 10 minutes a day already, what if you took 15 minutes? And 15 is such a weird number. Why don't you go ahead and take 20 minutes? And if you already take 20, then take half an hour. If throughout this week we just stopped, we set aside time to truly and humbly come before Jesus and say, Jesus, time with you is so much more important than anything else I could be doing right now. I can't help but imagine how much different our lives would be. I can't help but imagine that when we get to our community groups on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, our highs wouldn't just be, I'm here. And our lows wouldn't just be, I had school today. But our highs would be, guys, I had an encounter with God today. And the low is that I'm not with him right now in the same way. But I can't wait to be again. I can't help but imagine how different it would be if we just took some time to be disciplined. And here's the thing, guys. Being spiritually disciplined, that doesn't help God with anything. It doesn't make him love us more. It doesn't make us a better person. And praying isn't the only spiritual discipline. Jesus calls us to pray, to fast, to read his word. But I'm convinced that if we just do this one thing a little bit better, if we just focus on this one, everything else will follow suit. My challenge to you guys this week, whatever time you take to pray right now, if you don't pray at all during the week, start with 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes a day. And watch what happens. At community groups, you guys are going to have another opportunity to hear about another way to practically practice this idea of spiritual discipline. It's something we're doing as a church together, and I can't wait to talk with you guys about it. But a deeper relationship with Jesus starts with discipline. So when this video is done, set a timer and just pray. Just do it. And once that timer is over, if you want to keep going, keep going. You can talk to him about your day, about how you're feeling. Talk to him about how scary the world around us is. Guys, there's a lot to talk about. But do it. It starts with discipline. And it starts right now.